think about what negative paradigms come into your mind and then just change it around. Like if you feel like, oh my God, I'll never do that, just start saying to yourself, I'm capable, I'm confident, because you actually live in your head. The reality that you live out in your life actually has nothing to do with your happiness, because whatever you buy into is going to be your reality.
Well, hold on to your seats, because my guest on this week's episode will have you dancing into your day. That's right, her journey started with some rhythm, some music, and she's been dancing through life ever since. Christine Denny.
Sometimes people stop doing things because they're not the best, but it's not always about being the best, it's about having the best experience.
She's the creator and director of TAPATAK OZ, sharing her dance program with teachers across the country, and is also the CEO of the Joymaker Experience, where she brings joy, fun and connection to audiences and workplaces to both unlock and unleash their true potential.
Life is a constant up and down, up to the top of the mountain and then down to the bottom.
Christine, welcome to Share.
Hello, how are you, Steve? It's wonderful to meet you.
Yes, it is beautiful to meet you as well. I connected through Stephen DeMedio, and it's interesting. The podcast is almost a year old now, or when this is launched, it'll be over a year. And there's been a couple of schedule clashes with some people talking joy and happiness, and some people haven't got back to me, and some people haven't rebooked with me for an episode. So it's taken a year, but I finally connected with someone, which I knew I would, to bring a little bit of joy and a little bit of energy to the podcast. And here she is.
Yes, well, I'm glad I could be of service here today.
I listened to one of your podcast episodes with someone a couple of days ago, actually, and I was like, whoa. It energized me, so I'm looking forward to, as we say, probably dance into this episode a little bit. So first, who is Christine Denny?
Who is Christine Denny? Well, I started off my life as a tap dance teacher. So my mother had a dancing school for 45 years. So I actually started dancing because I had really turned in legs. And so the doctor suggested to my mum that I start dancing earlier rather than later, in the hope that it would turn my little legs around. But it didn't. They're still a bit turned in and funny. But I did all styles of dance with my mum, and tap dancing was the thing that really resonated with me, that I got a lot of bang for my buck. You know, I tried hard and I got a good result. Whereas classical ballet, because of my funny turned in legs, I tried really hard, but it was sort of never going to happen. So I found myself in the tap dance world. And then I was teaching tap dancing at a lot of the very sort of high-end performing arts colleges in Australia, like Brent Street, ED5, Eddinghausen's, the McDonald College, NIDA, and specialising in teaching tap. And then one day I decided I wanted to be a writer and do other things. So I thought, I think I'll write my own tap dance curriculum, as you do, to sort of show off what I've done for my life. And then that sort of grew and took on its own life, and clients were asking me to offer examinations in the program. So I ended up doing examinations in the program and mentoring the teachers teaching that program called TAPATAK OZ, and that's been going for 15 years. And then recently I wrote a children's book called Great Job Nature, because I noticed children were very disconnected from nature, and so I really wanted to help them just reconnect with their parents and with their natural environment. So I did that. And then at the same time, I started seeing with my full-time performing arts students that some of them had a lot of stress and anxiety, you know, dealing with the world and social media and everything. And so I developed a program called SOS, A Sense of Soul, which I delivered into some performing arts studios. And that very much looked at your values, what lights you up, where you get your sense of purpose, your sense of who you are, and how you stay grounded in the world. And then that evolved into the Joymaker. And so now the Joymaker is going into high school, schools, corporates, communities, personal joy mapping one-on-one, wherever people would like to. I say it's like strategic planning of your life. So strategically planning in your business or your life. In business and corporate, it tends to be more bringing teams together, helping people communicate, it's almost like a lost skill, which is so weird to say because I'm only 54. But life has changed so much, and people have sort of forgotten how to just, have a conversation, ask people questions, how to connect. So how to connect and energize a team, and then on a personal level, how to sort of strategize your life so you're engaging in things that light you up and make you feel cheery.
Perfect. That is an absolute awesome intro, and I look forward to tapping into, pardon the pun, but tapping into a few of those elements and going through your story. Now, tell me, was Christine always joyful?
Do you know, that's a very interesting question. I think the little Christine who first popped over into the world, I think she was very joyful, and I've always had a very quirky, different approach to life. That's what people around me say. I, of course, don't find myself quirky or different because I find my way of being normal because it's normal for me. But dressing up in a pineapple outfit and tap dancing to me is quite an ordinary thing to do. Whereas most other people would not find that necessarily an engaging activity. Whereas, something like that, I thought that'd be fun to dress up as a pineapple. And my friend, he was actually running a juice bar and he had this giant pineapple. So my instant reaction was, oh, can I borrow your pineapple costume? And so I want to dress up as a pineapple and tap dance. So I think I was always joyful, but I definitely have suffered a lot of depression and anxiety in my life. And I think that's one of the things that really motivates me in this work is you teach what you seek. So I always sought joy and acceptance and love. And so that is what I teach. And I think what makes me successful in this genre is because I have felt not good enough, and I have felt, fat, and I have felt, whatever, all those negative things that you tell yourself. I've definitely had all that in my life and really struggled with it at times. And so I have a lot of empathy for people because I understand how debilitating fear and anxiety can be. And it's ironic because I'm the Joymaker and my tap dancing thing, I'm always like tap dancing pineapple, da da da. But there's another person behind that sometimes. But the real me is the joyful person. The challenge is to sustain the truth of who I am in the world despite outside influences which are not really part of who I am. And I actually think most human beings are meant to exist in a joyful state of collaboration and self-acceptance and self-love. And we just have to not let external opinions, influences, social media, whatever it is, ruin that for us.
Yep. Now, Christine, has there been a time, when we step into our own kind of light, I suppose, and we be our own unique and authentic self, sometimes that can make other people uncomfortable, things can be said. Talk to me about the courage of being yourself.
Oh, look, I think there's a lot of courage in being yourself, especially if there's a bit of a public element to it. So with TAPATAK OZ, I was a lot more confident coming out in that because I'd done it for like 20 years, tap dancing. I was relatively well known in the field of tap dancing back in the day as a teacher and choreographer. So coming out there was easier. Pivoting or swiveling to Christine Denny, the Joymaker, the writer, the speaker, that was more challenging, mainly because I had to change the paradigm in which other people saw me, the prism that they saw me through. But it's really weird. I was just saying to some friends the other day, the first time I spoke at an event in Melbourne and I was in the elevator with my little banner and somebody in the elevator said, oh, are you here for an event? Yes. What are you doing? Oh, I'm the Joymaker. I spoke at an event. And the minute I said that, it was like my reality changed and I stepped into that. Whereas before I would have said, oh, I'm Christine Denny from TAPATAK OZ. I wrote a tap curriculum. And now I still do that, of course, but I'm very comfortable with Christine Denny, the Joymaker. You just have to leap off the edge and step into that role and accept that many people, I heard someone explain it as a jigsaw puzzle. So if you think of life as a jigsaw puzzle, and we are all pieces in the big jigsaw puzzle. So for my family, I'm a certain piece of that jigsaw puzzle. And for my friends, I'm a certain piece of that puzzle. So when you change yourself and suddenly you're a blue square when you were always meant to be the orange petal of a flower,
Yep.
their jigsaw puzzle is now disparate. And they're like, well, where's the piece that's meant to be in the blue sky? Because now you're an orange flower, you know? And then you also have your own jigsaw puzzle that you then have to reassemble to reflect the new you. So I think you just have to, I think unhappiness comes from unrealistic expectations, and you can't expect people to just boom, accept the new you or whatever. And you just stay with the people who are supportive, and the people who are unable to be supportive, then you just spend less time with them, I think, and surround yourself with people who believe in what you're doing and who you are. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love a good analogy. I haven't heard the puzzle piece analogy in regards to joy and happiness and life. That's absolutely gold. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no worries.
What about the energy it takes to give, to serve, to be that joyful person, right? So, you know, as you said, oh, I'm Christine Denny. I'm, you know, the Joymaker Experience, right? How much energy and how much focus does that take to embody that all the time?
Well, not a lot for me, because I've grown up in the tap dance world. So I'm used to being in front of, you know, a class of 36-year-olds going, hello, everybody, you know, being very dynamic. And like when you're teaching any form of dance or drama or music or any like children, anyone really, when you're teaching, you have to give 150% just to get 50%. You have to be so dynamic and over the top. So I'm used to existing in that paradigm. And I used to also play drum kit in a band. So I'm just used to sort of hammering out the drums. So on that, from that side, you fill your own cup, but you do then also have to have downtime and expect that. Like you're not going to be up all the time. And again, that comes to that expectation. So when I'm me being me, I tend to be quite up anyway, but I do love a lot of quiet time. Like I love meditation. I can sit for hours in absolute silence, like looking at a bug on a leaf or a little lizard or, you know, just looking at the birds fly. So that's probably how I balance those two things. But also I think it's very important for people to know that I'm not always happy and joyful, because that's part of the problem in the world, because everybody looks on social media and everybody's like, oh, I'm so happy. Oh, look at my burger. Oh, look, I'm drinking a milkshake. Like, oh, look, you know, and that's not real. Like I've had a friend and she had a post on Facebook once about how wonderful her life was. And then the next weekend she came to visit me and she's sitting on my balcony with a glass of wine telling me how her life is, you know, she's getting divorced. Her life is in total disarray. And I just thought, you know, it's not actually helpful for people to keep posting all this stuff that isn't necessarily reflective of a true life. And so I think I heard, remember Dr. Phil McGraw?
Yep.
Remember him? He's written a book, I think, called We've Got Problems or something, and he's been, you know, talking about it. But one of the things he said is when the mobile phone was invented, it was like it was just dropped on the world, but we weren't ready for it. We didn't know what the effects of it would be. We didn't have the tools and the skills necessary to deal with social media and all of those sort of things. And it's only now we're seeing there's a lot of great things about it, lots of connectivity, but there's lots of disconnection and disharmony generated. So I think people are starting to realize now, and it's up to us as a community to figure out, how do I empower the people around me and how do I create human connection if that's what I want in my world?
Yeah. And the funny thing is, it's interesting when you look at social media, I think it's so important, if you're going to post on social media, you have to show both sides, right? Because it's interesting, you know, people post great posts and everyone's celebrating them. But then if someone posts a post, and I know Yelena Dokic, you know, does this really well. She posts great things, but she also posts the times when she's not feeling great, when she's feeling not good in herself. And she really shows both those sides. And I really love that but the interesting thing is the trolls come out when you're not in a good place, right? So it's like, okay, someone's, you know, not in mentally stable place. They're struggling. They're going through some challenges. Yeah, let's just kick them while they're down. No, we should be uplifting them. But we continue to uplift people when they're going well and they're successful and they're smiling.
Yeah.
But we need to actually be lifting and complimenting people for actually showing that other side of things and showing that balance, because it's interesting, you talk about your experience, but I caught up with a friend yesterday and he did a 3-week sail, last minute kind of sail from Darwin round to Port Douglas. And I was chatting to Tim yesterday and I said, oh mate, the trip looked amazing. And he said, I would never do it again. It was awful. We were basically hanging on. He said, I went with a mate. We thought we were going to chat. We didn't end up chatting because it was so loud. And basically we were holding on for dear life for 3 weeks, right? Oh. And I said, that's interesting because I would have loved to have actually seen more of that. Holy moly, but it's interesting that we tend to just show snapshots and hide a lot of that. And I think the power is actually in being vulnerable, because then everyone, or even just one person watching that, kind of goes, oh, I'm not alone.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But it does take a lot of courage to share, because I think people are so worried because we live in such a litigious sort of finger-pointing society. I think we just need to get back to a place where we accept that everybody has yin and yang in their personality. Everyone has different sides to who they are, and no one's perfect, I wrote a post the other day on LinkedIn about the art of the apology, and that is something that I've mastered, because I can be really abrupt. Like, I can be the funniest person in the room, I can be great company, I can certainly be the joy maker, but I can certainly be rude to people sometimes. Now, I never have the intention of being rude, and it often happens, say, checking in for a flight at the airport, anywhere where I'm nervous or anxious. If I'm trying to meet a deadline and, get the washing on the line and then run off to do something else, when I'm in that sort of heightened state and I'm a bit of a nervous traveler, or if I'm checking into a hotel, they can be moments where I can be abrupt with somebody. And so many times in my past, not so much now, I've, check into the hotel and I'm just a bit abrupt, and then I go up to my room and then I come back down and say, excuse me, I'd like to reintroduce myself. You met my other me before. I'm so sorry. You're the most lovely person. I think I was a bit abrupt with you before, and you're doing a great job. So I just wanted to come back and say, for the rest of my stay, I will be this delightful person you see before you, and just apologize. And an apology can just turn a situation so quickly, because people realize you are big enough to come and say sorry. You had enough respect for them to show them that courtesy. And then that makes them realize, oh, you know what? I probably could have gone and apologized to a few people myself.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was driving along the highway the other day, and you talk about the power of apology, but I was driving along the highway and I went to merge over, and at the last second, just out of the corner of my blind spot, I saw a motorbike. And I thought, whoa. So I went, I kind of swift back into my lane, and I indicated over, I sped up a little bit and indicated over and got into the lane, and the motorbike went around me. I wound down my window, and I didn't wind down my window. I just pressed a button and it went down. For anyone listening that's, I don't know, under the age of whatever, or over, you won't know what winding window is, but we used to have to actually wind a window. But I put the hand out, gave him a thumbs up, and he came back, smile, gave a thumbs up, and off he went, right? Now, that could have been different for me, and it could have been different for him. And I think we're always having those interactions in life. I always find, just doing simple things. See, in life, I think we've got stuck in a phase, and we've got stuck in a groove where everyone thinks everyone's out for themselves, and everyone's, pushing in front of people. So, I like going to a supermarket, and, when you're going up to the register, there's usually someone that's going up to the register at the same time, right? Now, it's easy to go, I'm going to quicken up and slot in there, but learn to actually say, oh, no, you go. No, it's all right. And it's amazing because people go, oh, this is a bit interesting, because so many people are just locked in their own space and they just go. But there's so many things in life that if you actually say, do the opposite to what society in many ways has kind of taught us that we are like, you can wait a few seconds, or you can, kind of just be a little bit more patient. And it does actually teach you patience, but it actually makes you feel good because you've put someone else in front of yourself.
Exactly. And it's funny you bring up that example, because yesterday at the shops, I had a whole basket of things, and then this other man came along and he had like one banana. Like one banana. And I was like, would you like to go ahead of me? And he's like, is it okay? And I'm like, you've got one banana. You're fine. So he went with his little one banana. It was so funny. And I had my whole trolley, and he was so grateful. And exactly what you said. And then I felt really good. And this is one of the things I often share if I'm talking with a group of teenagers, because I said to a group of teenagers once, what sort of power do you think you hold in the world? And they were all very negative about, we've got no power. And I said, but you have so much power, as we all do every day, because your joy actually comes usually from helping other people. Like even in your workplace, if you achieve a goal, it's normally come that you worked as a team, or you've assisted someone, or someone's assisted you. It's the human connection that brings that sense of joy, or letting someone else, helping someone carry their pram up the stairs, or opening a door for somebody and then seeing their gratitude. I think that is what often brings people a sense of joy. And they're things that don't cost any money at all. But we've been sort of hoodwinked to think that this other sort of behavior. And I think television too, like a lot of the reality television and a lot of television now champions values that are actually not in alignment with ours. Yep. Most human beings, I think, want peace, harmony, respect, joy, courtesy, but then we watch television that doesn't champion that. Television, or read books or magazines that are all about, deception, murder, getting one up on somebody else, being devious and deceptive. So I just think people are starting to swivel back now and realize that we have to have accountability for the society we've created. And everybody's sort of, we've got to have a symposium to discuss it. I think it's pretty simple. If every individual thought every day, what can I do to create community where I live? I can say hello to people on my morning walk. I can, I was at the airport the other day and this guy walked up and he wanted to buy a coffee, and I don't know if he was a traveler and he just had the amount of coins left in Australian currency or something to buy his coffee, and he didn't have a credit card. And so he wanted to buy this coffee, and the lady said, oh, we don't take cash. And then she was like, if you walk around there and down there, then you'll find a machine. And I was standing behind him and I just said, I'll get his coffee. And the lady was like, really? And I said, he only wants one coffee. So I just paid for his coffee as well as mine, and off he went. And again, he was so grateful. But why would you see some poor man who's, looks a bit lost and dazed and confused in a different country try and walk and find an ATM, get cash to buy one coffee? Yeah,
it's crazy, but it's interesting, the flow-on effect. I know a coffee shop, and I spoke to a coffee shop owner one day, and she said a guy came in and paid for one coffee. And then he said, actually, I'm going to pay for the next coffee and I'm going to pass it on, right?
Yeah.
And then the next person came and went, oh, well, I'll pay for the next coffee and I'll pay for the next coffee. And they ended up getting through about 25, 26, 27 people before someone went, oh, thanks, and just took the coffee. But it was an interesting exercise to see how so many people actually went, oh, that's nice. Oh, well, I'm going to buy someone else's coffee. And they just kept passing it on. And there is that flow-on effect, and positivity, joy, happiness, that energy can be really infectious, right? And when you do something for someone else, it does make you feel good.
It does, and it gives people hope and meaning. And it's the little things in life. Like this morning, I haven't been doing my exercise of late. I've been very naughty, sleeping in and snuggling. So I actually got up and we went for our morning walk, and we've got a little group of people who meet in a place in Brisbane, and we all meet there all the time. And all those people were there and we hadn't seen them for ages. And you just feel your energy shift because you've made a connection with human beings, and nobody's on their phone. Everybody's talking and just chatting about the day. Have a lovely coffee. And then, you've had a lovely walk, and just that action of walking and getting out and about, that just creates a different energy. Like yesterday, I was in on my computer a lot, and then at lunch, I went out for a walk and came back, and just the difference it made to how I felt, just to feel the sun on my face and just to get out of my apartment and just have a bit of a walk. So if there is anyone out there struggling with joy, I think the most important thing is you need to have a plan for when you don't feel joyful. It's too late when you already feel depressed or anxious. It's too late then to think, oh, what can I do? Because by then you're in the spiral going down. You need, as soon as you feel that I'm starting to feel depressed or I'm not happy or something happened, it's a pattern. I like to say Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot, about sort of energetic patterns and how they give you a dopamine hit. So the same way, if you had a hit of caffeine, you get a hit from it. In your life, you create these patterns. And I am paraphrasing Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's far more eloquent and scientific. But the general gist of it is that your body gets used to a certain hit from a certain emotion. So if you're always angry or you always have panic attacks or you always do this or do that, your body just goes into that straight away. And so you have to really consciously decide, okay, that's an old pattern. I don't want that pattern anymore. And it does take a lot of work and a lot of self-observation and self-awareness. But I think, if you are someone who does suffer anxiety and stuff like that, you can really try. And as soon as you feel yourself getting depressed, okay, I know I need to get up every morning and go for a walk. I need to phone my friend so-and-so and just say, hey, I'm not in a good spot, just wanted to ring you for a chat. Because oftentimes if you just make that connection, phone that friend, go for that walk, just do something, go to the gym, do your yoga practice, whatever it is for you that can pull you up out of that, you need to have those things ready to go. So as soon as you feel that, you go, okay, boom, okay, I'm off. And now I'm back centered.
And for me, it's interesting because years ago, back in 2017, 18, I did a mastermind with a gentleman called Dr. Fred Gross. And I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Fred Gross.
No,
but he talks about 10s, 25s, 50s and 100s. And the 10s really are things that can help you make you have a 10 out of 10 day, right? So if you're not having a 10 out of 10 day, then you've got a list of things. And he said to us, and I've mentioned this a number of times in some of the episodes that I've recorded, but, have a list of 500 things, that bring you joy, that make you feel good, those kind of things. So for me, I always love a good analogy, and it's all about having a toolbox, right? Yeah. And whatever you're going through or however you're feeling, being able to reach into that toolbox and pull out a beach walk or some time for meditation or calling a friend or whatever it is, right? Yeah. And it's this toolbox of things. And over time, you build up more and more strategies, that allow you to, and you mentioned there, like when you're in anxiety or when you're in the depths of depression, it's too late. It actually isn't if you've got the toolbox and the strategies that can switch you out of it. Now, I know going through my journey since 2018, there was times where, my depression or my anxiety would cripple me for days. Now, I can still go through and have those moods, as we all can, but I just go, what do I need to get out of my toolbox today? What do I need for me? What self-care do I need to implement today to make me feel better? And our energy always isn't just at 150%, right? As you said earlier, we've got to step back. We've got to have some downtime. We've got to look after ourselves and look after our energy, because if we don't look after ourselves, we can't give anything to other people.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'll tell you, one of the what I often do in my Joymaker things is talk about the soundtrack of your life and having different playlists on your phone for different things. So I know, like, if I'm going to be going to give a presentation, I might play, like, Metallica, Enter the Sandman. And I'm just like, and tonight, I'm just like, yeah, after Never, Never Land. I'm really pumped. I'm like vibing, But like, if I want to just feel peaceful, then I've got this great piece of music a friend of mine wrote called Ebb and Flow. And Nathan Seeler, his name is. He's got lots of beautiful music, just really relaxing, beautiful tunes. And I actually put that on my phone for when I wake up in the morning. It's my alarm. So when I wake up in the morning, it's just this, this really beautiful sort of, mellow awakening to the day. And then, other tracks that are, if I just want to meditate, I've got one that's just all birds and, twittering creatures in the night sort of thing. So having like a soundtrack. So if you do feel a bit, you wake up and you're just not feeling yourself, You can get up, put your headphones on and just crank out a dance in the kitchen,
Yep.
with your favorite songs. And before you know it, you'll be like, boom, out you go, and you're into the day in a positive frame of mind.
And I'm guessing for you, you've probably had experiences where you haven't felt quite right. You've chucked on the tap shoes, and as soon as you put the tap shoes on, it's changed.
Oh, yeah, because I love tap dancing. And rhythm is such a wonderful – I use a lot of rhythm in everything that I do, because rhythm just transcends all boundaries. Like men find rhythm very accessible and relatable, and women, children, and it's not like musical taste. Rhythm is just something that runs through the rhythm of life is a powerful beat, and it runs through everything. So, yeah, I always feel very fortunate that I've spent like my whole life pretty much, except for, your little waitressing jobs that everybody does. But my life has been tap dancing and now the Joymaker and writing. And I mean, I just feel so fortunate that I've made a living. And as a female tap dancer, that's pretty incredible, because until a few years ago, it was a very male-dominated sort of genre. But it's also a very happy genre. Like a lot of contemporary dance can be quite, angst-ridden and everything, and tap is just happy. And when I sit listening in the exams, and all the little children, like it's just such a happy art form. And then most of the children tell me, because I have a thing called tap chat at the end of the exam, because I want to hear why they do it. I want them to be connected to what they're doing. And they'll always say things like, oh, I just love it because it makes me feel happy, or I'm making music with my feet, or I love my friends who come to tap dancing. So it's a very, happy sort of thing. And drumming too just feeds your soul. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Excellent. Now, you talked about how people can discover joy for themselves. Talk to me about the work you're doing in events and in workplaces to really get organizations to be able to kind of tap into the, how joy can be empowering in the workplace and in the professional setting. Yeah.
Well, I remember my dad always saying to me, nobody can work for you if they're worried or have stress, or they're not happy in themselves. Then people cannot do a good day's work unless they're feeling, grounded and happy about who they are. And I think a lot of workplaces are really realizing now that they're, the company culture can't just be words on the wall. It actually has to be something that is felt within the company, right from the very top, from the CEO, all the way down to the very bottom. And actually it needs to come from the bottom up. There needs to be a joy for where you're working. Everyone needs to have the same values, be on the same page. And when people they feel like a team, there's trust. And when people trust the people around them, then they're willing to contribute. They're willing to put themselves on the line. They're willing to come in a bit early if they have to, knowing that the next day they might go home a bit early, because there's that trust in every element of the business. So my approach changes depending on the type of organization. So I've done some work with McNabb Constructions, and that was more working in tandem with Peter Ferreira, who does a lot of strategic planning and executive coaching. So we work really well together as a team. So he does that element, and I do the element that's all about, getting people to stop and look at their what I call energetic footprint. So what energetic footprint are you bringing into the workplace? And just being aware of, like, I can be very defensive. Like, I'm, little Miss Joymaker, but I know I can be very defensive. So you've got to know who you are as a person. Nobody's perfect. Everyone has their way of existing in the world, but the key is awareness. So then you can strategize for yourself whether to hold that defense, because it can be good in some negotiating situations or whatever, but sometimes you're actually not going to do your best work or come to the workplace in the best way if you're coming from a position of defense. But every situation is different, and you have to, obviously look at that yourself. So in organizations, a lot of it is to do with self-awareness, looking at the energetic footprint of everybody in the room, and also looking at, do you connect with the other people? Do you feel safe? But just in a very, it's really just common sense. Everybody wants to feel seen, heard, and valued. So they have all these fancy words like, psychosocial well-being and employee engagement and blah, blah, blah. It all comes down to, does everybody feel seen, heard, and valued? It's so simple. But I think that old wisdom or the old way of doing things is just being lost with technology. And so things have become a bit cold. And I think that happened also during COVID where people weren't together. And I think the good thing about COVID restrictions is people, I think, now really see the importance of the energetic exchange between people, like looking someone in the eye, shaking someone's hand. And also I like to bring awareness that, like in the old days, people say, what's happened to community? Well, in the old days, as you would know, if you were meeting someone for a drink in a bar or a cafe, you would go to that place, and while you were waiting, you would chat to the barista, you would chat to the other people waiting. There'd be, you'd be chatting. And then the same.
I do that now. I still do that now.
Yeah. And if you're in the queue at the bank or waiting to buy a loaf of bread or at the bus stop or on a train or a tram or on a plane, everybody was talking. But with the advent of technology, now everyone's just got their face in a device. So make just awareness. So I guess in corporates, helping people come together as a team and to discern their values. Like, what are the values that drew you to work for this organization? And then when everybody realizes and gets stories from everybody else, then you just have this cohesion. The team comes together. I do a lot of sort of rhythm games and fun, sort of what people call play, but rhythm games, drawing, meditation, playing with balloons, all these different things. I've got the Aussie bird song, which is an orchestra of birds, but everything comes back to the learning is about different personality types, how they work together, how we help each other, are we helping each other, and how do you turn up to your workplace? What are your expectations? So it's all very fun, but there's a message that's delivered very clearly, because people don't really, if you're just sitting, and someone's talking and looking at a board, everyone's asleep. So I deliver messages, but in a fun way, fun, energized way. So people go, oh my God, that was so funny being a cockatoo. And then they remember the message behind it, or, oh, that blob tree was hilarious, or that was, and so imparting messages. Did I answer the question? I tend to go off on tangents.
Look, it's just absolute beautiful stuff. I could listen to this all day. It's absolutely amazing. It's interesting talking about how joy, and it's interesting. I went over to a retreat in February. I went to a men's retreat, but I actually stumbled across this Esalen retreat, which is in California. It's on the coast there. And I did a retreat on unlocking and kind of empowering the critic within. And there's a guy there. One morning it said, there was like a meditation or like a starting morning workshop. And it wasn't part of the actual conference that I was on or retreat I was on, but they do these things every morning. And the guy there, who is an amazing, he's been there for many, many years. He's been there for decades. And he was just sitting there with a guitar. Anyway, he got us up moving, right? And we were dancing with each other, right? This is like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And it was amazing how we felt. And it was interesting because he got us to talk about, at the end, how uncomfortable was it to actually dance with other people and be yourself, right? But there was just this beautiful energy in the room. And then he got us high-fiving, and you had to walk around in different things. And then you had to just like dance and move around the and it was just this real energy, and it was just such a beautiful way to start the day. And it was just infectious, right? And it was interesting talking to people, because they were like, oh, I felt so guarded. But by the end of the session, he was like, okay, all right, we're going to stop. Okay, give 3 people hugs. And it just built this love in the room. It just built this connection, this energy that I was like, if you could just pop that in a bottle and take a swig of that every morning was good. But at the end of the day, we can, right? Because we can put these things into place, whether it's going to a gym, whether it's going to a yoga session, whether it's connecting, however you connect. But you can take that kind of swig every morning, and you can take that swig during the day. as long as you're building that environment and being in environments that actually nurture and kind of create that environment and create that opportunity to, one, be yourself, to inject joy, happiness, and energy into that environment.
Yeah, I think the big key is self-love, because and that comes to when you're saying, oh, don't want to dance around in front of people. That's because you're criticizing yourself, thinking, oh, I look stupid, I look this, I look that. But in actual fact, there's nothing more beautiful than if you're out and there's a live band playing and people get up and dance. And I think most people sitting there are thinking, oh, I wish I don't look stupid, I won't get up. But so many times I used to go home thinking, I wish I'd got up and danced. And I think a lot of people feel inhibited by the opinions of others. And I always say to them, no one else actually cares about you. We are actually so focused on ourselves. Most people are so focused on ourselves. No one cares what anyone else is doing. Look, we don't care what anyone else is doing, and yet we think they care what we're doing. It's sort of really bizarre. So I think it's exactly true what you're saying. So I think the biggest hurdle I had was coming to that self-love place, because I had a lot of negative self-image coming up through the dance world, where you're meant to be really skinny and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And so I had to make the decision to turn that around. And so I often say a lot of positive affirmations throughout the day. I'm beautiful, I'm loved, I'm clever, I have great things to bring to the world, I always do my best. And I just reframe. So for anyone out there, if you have little things, and you'll notice, I call them mini me. Used to say to my TAP students, mini me, when they'd come into their exam and they'd have a panic attack and they'd start shaking and crying or something, little 10-year-olds. And I'd say, hold on, you just talk to mini me and you tell that person, no, I've practiced my steps, I know what I'm doing, and you're not going to ruin my exam. You're not going to ruin it for me. And you just have to have that attitude to this when you have the negative words coming in your head, which everybody does. So I would invite the listeners, think about what negative paradigms come into your mind and then just put it to a different sentence. Just change it around. I'm capable, I'm confident. If you feel like, oh my God, I'll never do that, just start saying to yourself, I'm capable, I'm confident, because you actually live in your head. The reality that you live out in your life actually has nothing to do with your happiness. Because I know sometimes in my life when I've been perceived as the most successful, I haven't been the happiest. And that made me step back and go, oh, that's interesting. And so it's all in your mind, whatever you tell yourself. Even if you're having a terrible day at work and everyone's yelling at you, if you say in your head, I'm doing the best, I'm really appreciated, I love working here, then because the behavior of the people around you has nothing to do with you. And that's one of the biggest lessons that I always try. It's hard to remember it in the throes of a difficult day, but how people respond to you has nothing to do with you. It has to do with them. So you're only responsible for your own behavior, how you respond to situations and how you show up. And as long as you do the best you can, but if you feel great about yourself, it gives other people permission to feel great about themselves too.
Before we get back into the episode, from time to time you might have a burning question, a guest recommendation, a comment or some feedback, which I always appreciate. If so, I'd love to continue the conversation after this episode, so let's connect. I'm easy to find, but the best place to engage and connect is on Instagram, @TheSteveHodgson. But that's enough from me. Let's get back into the episode. Yeah. And I think it's interesting. I went to a conference and I used to be like that. Oh, don't get up and dance, or don't put your hand up and kind of suggest, or don't kind of tell everything about your story. This was me years ago, and I've been to lots of conferences and seminars. But the interesting thing is that, I went to a Wim Hof retreat about a year and a half ago. And it's interesting. I love when I go and they say, share your story. I'll get up and say, I'm Steve, went through burnout, depression, anxiety, fatigue, right? And it's interesting because other people sitting there that are going through the same things that I am or have sit there and go, I'm going to say, I feel courageous. I've got courage now because he's done it. so I can share it, right? And
Yeah.
then there's a flow-on effect of that. And it's interesting. I was at a conference probably about a year ago, and it's interesting. They basically had us moving around the room at different points through the sessions, and it would be like, okay, go and meet someone you haven't known, you haven't met, right? And ask them questions around where they're from. And what I want you to do is I want you to find 3 things that you've got in common, right? So you would have to interact with these people. Now, you could see in this self-development kind of setting, so many people were like, oh my God, who do I talk to now, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's 2 things. You can sit there and be really uncomfortable standing around, kind of looking around, kind of being like a bit of a deer in the headlights. But actually it's easier, and I found it's easier to actually go up and introduce yourself and say, hey, find the person that's stuck with the like a deer in headlights, and you actually take away their anxiety, and then you actually encourage them next time to go. Because I remember I went up to someone and I was like, oh, hey, how are you? Introduce myself, and they're like, oh, thank you. I just didn't know who I was going to chat to next. And I said, but next time you do it. And they did, right?
Yeah.
And I spoke to them later on and I said, how did it feel? And they went, oh, that was so much easier than the feeling of actually standing there like a deer in headlights, not knowing who to talk to or whatever it is. I actually was proactive rather than reactive. And it took away so much of my anxiety. And I actually found the exercise was so exciting, and I actually got so much energy out of it from that point.
Yeah, it's so true. I remember years ago I went to a workshop, and we had to walk up and hug people. And at that stage in my life, I was a very anti-hugging person. And wasn't as far down the development track as I am now. So I'd walk up to people and I'd say, hello, my name's Christine. I'm sure you're a lovely person, but I'm not really open to hugging people I don't know. And I'd shake their hand. Anyway, the lady running the workshop, she sent me an email. She said, oh, everyone found you very confronting. And but I think, I was very polite to everybody. And I think you always have to do what is right for you in the moment. Just do what's right for you in the moment. And then that left me questioning, why did I not want to hug anyone? No, I sort of reflected upon that. And I mean, there's still some people I don't want to hug, and that's okay. There's people you want to hug and there's people you don't. And that's just, personal body space. But I love how you said it's being proactive, like taking the action. And that's the same as I was chatting to a little girl last week. She was doing her exam and she came in and she just burst into tears. She just had a panic attack. And so we chatted to her and we sort of said, oh, look, so I said to her, why are you crying? Do you want to explain to me why? Are you feeling anxious or sad, or what do you think's about to happen that's making you behave like this? And she said, oh, I get anxiety. I'm really anxious. So I said to her, well, I used to get anxiety too. And I said, the first time I was going to give a talk, I woke up in the morning and I was so terrified. I actually was frozen in my bed and I couldn't move. My arms wouldn't work, my legs, nothing. I just could not move. I was just lying there like this. And that lasted for about 20 minutes before I could actually physically move. And then I went and did the talk and it was fantastic. And so I said to the little girl, so, settle into the moment and move through it.
And there's a really simple line that I took from the movie We Bought a Zoo with Matt Damon, and it's 20 seconds of courage, right? If you take 20 seconds of courage to do something, by the time you're into it, after 20 seconds, you've forgotten.
That's right.
You've moved past it.
I love that film, We Bought a Zoo. I just remember I love it. I don't remember the details of it, but I'm going to look for it and watch it again now.
Brilliant movie. And I watched it with watched it with my sons many, many years ago, and I was like, this is such a brilliant movie. And I just, the thing I take away things, whether it's a talk, you can write notes on everything and that's fine, but just go, what's one thing that you take away? But for that, it was 20 seconds of courage. And if you're feeling anxious for something before a talk or whatever, just throw yourself into it and go, I've got to take 20 seconds of courage. Before you know it, you've done it. And I use that 20 seconds of courage now when I feel that little bit of a feeling in my stomach when I'm about to do something. I go, but now I don't need the 20 seconds of courage as much because I've thrown myself into a lot of things by using that strategy that now it's just second nature.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, the thing is, I think you have that 20 seconds of courage when you're starting off, because I think as human beings, we have this expectation. We think that the people who've gone before us never had any fear or any doubt or anxiety or whatever. And so you're coming along the path, you know, into that field or that new experience. And you're like sort of thinking, but everybody has had that. Everybody has that same experience. And I heard someone say the other day, you climb a mountain and then the peak of that mountain becomes the base of the next mountain. You know, and I think, again, that comes back to expectation and understanding. And I think that's something we need our younger generations to understand, that you don't just, life isn't that you go to the top of a pinnacle and then you're like, da-da, here I am. That's just not life. Life does not work like that. You reach a pinnacle, and then for most people, your expectations change or your circumstances change or your values change, and then you're ready for a new challenge. So life is a constant up and down, up to the top of the, you know, the mountain, and then down to the bottom. Like for me with my tap dancing endeavors, when I first went to examine, I was terrified. I hardly knew how to use a computer. I'm sitting there and the kids are coming in. I'm trying to type the reports, watch them tap dance, hitting buttons, and things would happen on my computer. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done, you know? But that's just life. And then now I go to examine, I can type so quickly, I can watch, I'm just like, boom, boom, so easy. Like, and I think most things are like that. It's so scary when you jump in, but that is the human experience. And again, if we had that expectation, I'm going to feel a bit uncomfortable, I just need 20 seconds of courage. And then you realize most people actually want you to succeed. And people who are further along, I found the more successful people are, the quicker they answer my emails, and the more reliable they are, and the more help they want to give me. That's what I find. So I also think it's really so important to approach people and say, hey, do you want to do this together? Like, do you want to do that together? Or would you have 10 minutes for a coffee? I'd love to get your advice on this or that. Or oftentimes the people who are really successful do answer and they do help. And I don't know, it's an interesting thing to me. And then, your expectation is, they don't have time or whatever, but they often do. And I think human beings, again, we've been hoodwinked into thinking that it's this horrible thing and everything's challenging and nasty, and it's not. Human beings are actually incredibly generous, supportive, loving, kind people who 99% of us all want the same thing: to be seen, to be heard, to be valued, to be supported, and to have a joyful, harmonious life experience. And I think if we could just all realize that and everyone's on the same page, and then we don't have to be defensive and guarded. We can be like open to everyone.
And I find with this podcast, I've reached out to a lot of people, and I reach out to different people, and you know, people reach out to me saying, I'd love to be on your podcast. And for me, it's all about how I feel, how I feel the guest and the theme fits in. Like I was talking about, I've reached out to people around joy, happiness, laughter, those kind of things. And it's interesting, you know, I had someone that was quite internationally, you know, known, and very early on, she said, yep, let's book in. And the worst thing is I was so excited about it. I woke up in the morning and I'd lost my voice. So I had to message her and say, I can't do this. And it's a shame because we haven't been able to connect, but you know, there was a reason for that. There's a reason for everything. And this is what I always say, but I get connected. And even when I email someone that I think, look, they're probably not going to come on the podcast, but I put it out there into the universe. And if you put things out there into the universe, when they're ready, the universe will bring them back. If they're meant to be. If they're not, they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm reading a book by, I don't know if you've heard of Florence Scovel Shinn.
No.
She wrote, you'd probably love her book. I'll send you the title. But anyway, she wrote a lot of books. There's very much about that, about the divine plan of your life and stepping into the divine plan of your life and expecting it to be great and having that energy. And I think it's really simple, really. It's a bit like, you know, The Secret. But it's really being an energetic match to success. And if you think about going to a party, like if you go to a party and there's someone there who's really fun and lively and telling jokes and having a great time, you sort of want to be around them. And if there's somebody sitting in the corner looking really aggressive and sad, you sort of think, oh, I might skip that. And that's really what life comes down to, is you've got to be the people you want to attract. So if you want to be around happy people, interesting people, then you have to be happy and interesting. You know, it's just as simple as that. Be the person you want to be around, and surround yourself with those sort of people who are having, like I like being around people. I love human behavior. I love the possibility of humanity. I love human connection. And my whole life has been around human connection and human individuality. So I'm very much about individuation, people expressing who they are. So whether that's my tap dancing business or with children with the Great Job Nature book, or whether it's with the Joymaker, what I've come to see in the last few years is everything I do is about human connectivity and championing the beauty of the human experience and human connection. And I think if you do that and you know who you are and you go out into the world with this joyful expectation, then people mirror that, and that comes back to you. Like, you'll see someone walking down the street and they look really miserable, and 9 times out of 10, if I say good morning, they'll go, oh, good morning. People want to have that community. People want that. But not everybody's brave enough just to step out on the limb, or even on a train, put your phone away and just sort of look around. And then, hey, how are you? And you can make conversation. Like I was in Melbourne 2 days ago, and I had a meeting with a friend, and then we walked up to Brunetti's. Do you know Brunetti's in Melbourne?
No.
Oh my goodness. If you're from Melbourne, you've got to go to Brunetti's. There's one in Lygon Street and one in Flinders Lane. It's like this giant Italian sort of restaurant with cakes everywhere, and oh my goodness, it's just delicious, and amazing coffee. And we went there, and this other lady was an educator and a teacher, and we were sitting talking, and we're having this really animated conversation. And then all of a sudden the lady sitting on my right said, excuse me, are you teachers? And we're like, yes. And she's like, blah, 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 blah. We've just been listening to your conversation. We just wanted to ask this. And then we ended up there another hour chatting to these 2 ladies who were in the education system in like schools, primary schools, and talking about all manner of things to do with, imparting wisdom and knowledge to the next generation and children. And we were just so enthralled because the other lady, Frances, who I was with, she is also a passionate educator and really loves the art of teaching and of empowering young people. And so when you surround yourself with people who have the same passion, then life is joyful. I think life is not joyful if you're surrounded by people who don't share your interests and your passion.
Yep.
You need to have people around you who love talking about the same things.
And I always
see value in it.
Yeah. And I always say, you meet everyone you come across in your life, you come across them for a reason, right? Whether it's someone chatting at the coffee shop, you get to know them, you've got an opportunity to make their day, make them laugh. But there's always a reason why you come in contact with someone or you meet someone. And it's like, what can I do to help them? And is there something that they can do maybe to help me as well? So through this podcast, through the people that I'm always interacting with, I'm like, oh, you need to, I've met this guy, or I've met this lady. You need to catch up for a coffee, because you guys will collaborate really well. And I actually think the power of collaboration and connection and conversation, if it's not this insular, it shouldn't be this insular, kind of thing. It should be that we actually go, how can I help you? How can you help me? And how can we make the greatest impact in this world that we actually want to make?
That's right. And I think it's the fear of rejection, and stepping out of the tap dancing world into this new joy making world. I did that by joining LinkedIn. So for me, LinkedIn was how I got to know other people outside of the dance world, because I really wanted to expand and explore different topics, and human behavior is my passion. I really wanted to get into that a lot more. And I've seen, though, 35 years in a classroom and running my own curriculum, you get a very good understanding of human behavior, what makes people tick. And But LinkedIn was the thing that gave me the opportunity to meet so many different people and go meet people for coffee and here and there. And it's funny how you said before about when you go to a conference and people don't want to contribute or say anything. Well, I've discovered that you often win a prize if you contribute. So I've won so many prizes. I won tickets to a lunch. I won a jar of honey. I won a flight center voucher just for being me and just for contributing at the end of a talk or asking a question, and then I'll win a prize. And I'm like, ta-da!
Yeah, that's awesome.
It does pay to just contribute. And then through that prize that one of the prizes, which was the lunch, I went to the lunch and then I made contact with this other lady who now I'm working with on projects. And that was all because I bought a ticket to hear Jeff McKeon, to see him speak at this, what was it called? Over at the Powerhouse. I can't remember the name. Anyway, a conference over there. And then I won the tickets to this other sort of networking event and then met this lady who I'm now working with. So it just pays to, and if you'd said to me years ago to go to something like that, because my initial background was tap dancing, I would think, oh no, I don't think I'd mix with those people. But it's just in your head oftentimes.
And our life is all full of sliding door moments, right? And that was a sliding door moment for you, which then opened another door, which opened another door, which opened another door. And for the rest of your life, that one sliding door moment opens many doors, right? And then that moment for the other person also opens a lot of doors because of the connection that they have had with you. Yeah.
I mean, I've got some incredible, exciting opportunities that are just coming up in the second half of the year that I would never have dreamed in a million years I would be in those environments with those people doing those things. I'm not going to speak about them until they're actually done because you never know, something could happen, but pretty much looks good to go. And again, it's just having that trust. And I think it's just putting yourself out there, and instead of thinking, am I going to be good enough? No, I know what I've got to offer. Would you like to use what I've got to bring your event to life? Or can my expertise, can my energy help drive what you're trying to achieve? And it's either a match or it's not. It's no reflection of you. Is this what you want? And if you can have that mindset and just meet people and go, yeah, okay, yeah, cool, no worries. It doesn't matter if that you're not the right fit for them. You'll be the right fit for someone else. The most important thing is that you discover who are you and what's the hill you're going to die on. And the hill I'm going to die on is human connectivity, keeping human beings connected, because I truly believe that is the path to joy, is having that energetic exchange, that laughter, that connection, because I think that is what most human beings thrive upon.
Yeah, perfect. Now, obviously listening to this podcast would be a lot of parents. You've obviously written a children's book and around nature. And if we think about cultivating and harnessing that joy in young kids as they get into their youth, into their teens, as they become young adults, what are some tips that you've got for parents on kind of cultivating and harnessing that joy in their children?
I think a great idea is setting up a home life that champions gratitude and self-love. I think gratitude and self-love, and from a parent, loving your child, no matter if they're different to you or they're, let them express who they are. So I think a great thing is to limit phone usage. So just have a very hard stop that say maybe, in the home, like say, whatever you decide, but, from 4 p.m. till 8 a.m., hand your phones in, they're going in the cupboard. You don't need them. And we're having family time. And if you can't all eat together, maybe every morning the family comes together and they write gratitude of what are 3 things that I'm grateful for today. And I don't know where I saw this the other day. A lady was saying she had a routine with her children where they all make their bed in the morning and then they come to the center area. They have a green juice or something, and then or eat a nutritious meal, and then they say 3 things they're grateful for. And the first one is always, I'm so grateful I have a beautiful room and bed to sleep in that keeps me protected from the elements. I'm so grateful I've got food to eat, and I'm so grateful for this. So I think practicing gratitude, because when you practice gratitude, it puts your focus on what you do have instead of putting your focus on what you don't have. And that is incredibly powerful. So I would say getting your children to have a gratitude practice and even do it as a family, so it becomes a way of life, like, you know, noticing, you know, and if you don't have a lot of means or resources, the sun shines for everybody, you know, and you can always look out the window and say, I'm so grateful for the sunshine. I'm so grateful that I'm here to live another life. I'm so grateful that my legs move, that I can speak. There's always someone who has less than you, and there's always someone that has more than you, but you've just got to be grateful for you and love you for who you are. If there's things you want to change, that's okay, change them. But it's really, I think, important for a little child. I'd probably get a little child to look in the mirror each day with me and say, I love me. I love my eyes. I've got a great smile. Hi, Christine. I love you. Have a great day. And then go off into the day.
Yep. You've seen the video, hey, of that girl in the bathroom? You would have had to have seen it.
No?
The one in the bathroom where she's like, I am great. I am beautiful. I will have to find it. And
Is it a child?
Little girl, yep.
Yes, I did see that.
And it's just like, this is awesome. It's been shared so many times. I don't know how many times. And I don't even know where the girl is these days. But what an absolute brilliant video. And like just absolutely amazing of that kind of just self-awareness. And I sit there and I go, I hope that she continues that. I hope she continues that as the pressure of social media, as peers, as what she looks like, as she, you know, looks at stuff on social media, in the media, in movies, in public, in society. I hope that she remembers and watches that video and kind of go and kind of really keeps that power within her to know that she can, you know, start her day like that, because it's just absolute gold.
It is. And I think the other thing too that everybody can think about, including myself, everybody, is that walk your talk, especially if you're a parent or a teacher. Children learn more from watching what we do than what we say. And I always use the famous Maya Angelou quote, people will always remember how you made them feel, not what you said or what you did. So do your children feel loved? You know, I did a workshop with some high school students, and there was a girl there and she was the dux of the school. And when my Joymaker workshop had finished, it was a 3-hour event from like 9 till 12, and then they had lunch. She just wouldn't go out to lunch. She just stood there staring at me, and then she burst into tears. And, you know, basically, even though she was dux of the school, her family had different cultural beliefs to the Australian norm, and she felt she was really following those, but that her parents didn't love her at the end of the day, to cut it to a short story. So, and they were having her see a psychologist or something. And I just felt really sad for her, because all she wanted was to feel loved. That was it. If her parents just said, we love you, we really appreciate all the work you do at school, you're dux of the school, I don't know, give her a hug. So I'd say to parents, hug your children, tell them that you love them all the time. You can never say, I love you enough. And I think a lot of people have trouble saying, I love you, because if you've come from a family that never said those words, I love you, but they're incredibly powerful. So just make sure every morning or every night you say to the loved ones in your life, I really love you. You make my life better. You make my life a great place. And I think feeling loved and valued, I think, is a great foundation. So, yeah, for parents, I would say let the kids know that they're loved, and have a gratitude journal, and limit the social media time. And then also explain to children, you know, this is great, but you need to understand when it's not a live living person in front of you, you don't know if it's real or not. So and be careful. I always say what you buy into, because whatever you buy into is going to be your reality. Yeah, so if you buy into the paradigm that the world's a nasty place and full of horrible people, then that's your world. But I am buying into the world that the world is full of amazing human beings who love to connect, who are full of joy. And I actively seek out those people, because then that is my reality.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, Christine, can I ask you,
Mm.
what's been the biggest challenge that you've had in your life and how did you overcome it?
The biggest challenges I've had in my life is my own idea of self-worth. And I talk about narratives all the time, but we often have a narrative that's running in our life that's come from when we were young. So I had two very powerful narratives. One was my younger brother, he passed away when he was 3 years old, and he was the only male child in our family. And I didn't realize this till I was about 32, and I was seeing a counselor, and I thought it was because, that I had all this grief and everything because my boyfriend had left me. But it turned out that I had all this grief because my little brother had left me. And I had what I would call survivor guilt. So I realized in that moment that I always thought I should be a boy, and I felt guilty that I was alive. So I felt that if I had died, then my family, everyone would have been happy and the world would be, everything would be perfect, and it was my fault that my brother died. Now, why did I think that? Well, because I was 5 years old. You're just 5. You just make, you in a traumatic situation, you just put the pieces of the puzzle together somehow, and they're not always indicative of the reality. So that was a real realization. And the other one, so then I put little Post-its all around my house. It's not my fault that Christopher died. I'm okay. It's all right to be a girl. Being a girl is great. I love being a girl. All these sort of Post-its, and I just told myself that all the time, religiously, to turn that around. And then the other one was when I was little, I overheard some ballet teachers at a workshop that I'd done. So remember at the very beginning, I said I tried really hard, but I was all turned in and funny. So my best friend, when I was little at ballet, she ended up being in the Queensland Ballet and the City Dance Company. She was very talented and gifted and incredible. So I always felt I wasn't good enough, and my mum was a ballet teacher. So I overheard this lady, visiting teacher, say, "Oh, poor little Chrissy, she tries so hard, but she'll never be any good." And then that, even to this day, I often get this, it's like this subconscious thing, "Oh, don't bother trying, you'll never be any good." But with awareness, you can choose to step out of that narrative. But you have to be aware of it, and you have to be willing to be uncomfortable and step out. And like Stephen Demedio, who you talked about before, I met him first at a kayaking group that I'm in. And when I first started kayaking, that was only like 6 years ago. So I was like 48 or something. It was really confronting because I found it hard to, because in dance, you look like this, and your head follows your arm in dance, but you can't do that when you're paddling because you don't get where you're going. You got to look straight ahead. So I found it really hard just to have my arms and shoulders moving, but my head to be looking straight ahead. And I just couldn't do it. And I was so far behind the group. And then I realized in the back of my head, it was from when I was, 8 years old, hearing someone say, "Doesn't matter, poor little Chrissy, she tries so hard, she'll never be any good." Well, that's not true. That's not true. So you have to find these little stories that you're playing in your mind, and you have to say to yourself, that is not true. And I don't believe that anymore, because beliefs are powerful. And you've got to say, I don't believe that. I believe that I'm competent and confident, and I can improve on this every day and then move forward.
I think you saw one of my posts. I think you interacted with it. One of my posts recently, which was talking about when people encourage you or they discourage you, right? And when some people discourage you, actually sometimes it actually encourages you even more, because you go, no, I'm good at this, or I'm going to do this anyway, and I'm going to be bloody good at it.
Yeah. But the thing is too, like sometimes I'm not the best kayaker in the world, but I love it. I get enjoyment from it. And, I'm never going to, represent Australia in the Olympics for kayaking or anything, but that doesn't mean I don't get out and enjoy kayaking. I know where I sit in the ranks of my skill level, but I'm not there to be the best. I'm there to have fun and to be out on the river and to enjoy all the wonderful friendships I've made in that group of kayakers. So I think sometimes people stop doing things because they're not the best, but it's not always about being the best. It's about having the best experience.
Well, if we all had the mindset that we would only do things if we were the best, we wouldn't do anything.
No, that's right. That's right.
So
I think does it light you up? Does it bring you joy? Does it make you feel good? If it does, go and do it. If it doesn't light you up, and this goes for people as well, like if you don't have an ease with people where you feel that they support who you are, that you can be who you are fully, then just limit your time with those people and put your time and effort into people who are excited to see you, who want to write you in pen in their diary.
Yep.
You know, not in pencil where they can rub you out if something better comes up, but, you know, the people who prioritize you in your life, prioritize them back. And then you're surrounded by amazing people who you love seeing them, they love seeing you. And it can be hard if, you know, sometimes when you change, you do lose some friends along the way. But, you know, I wrote a blog once and said friends are like different hotel guests. You know, some come in the little, you know, those turnstiles. Some people walk in, they don't even get out at the lobby of your hotel. Some people come in, they have a coffee and they leave. But some people move up to the penthouse and they stay forever. And they're your friendships. And again, expectation. Don't expect everybody to be there forever.
That's why you and I get on so well, Christine, I think, because we love analogies, right? I love a good analogy.
Yeah. Yeah,
hey,
I do too.
I wanted to ask you, throughout your life, talk to me about how success has changed and what you define as success these days.
You know, it's so true. And I think anyone who's older will say exactly the same thing. When you're young, I think you perceive success as what you have, what you've brought to you in terms of material sort of gain. Like, you know, how much money do you have? What car do you drive? Or your career. What has your career done in terms of other people, what other people think of your career, like status. Status, that's what I'd say. I say when you're young, most people are craving family, status. Yeah. And then as you get older, I think people crave service. People want to be of service. And I think that's where I've really changed. And with the Joymaker, like sometimes, you know, I'll have, you know, somebody I'm just working with privately and I can talk to them for 3 hours. Like I just want to help people. I want people. One lady, I spent 5 hours with her. She was only meant to have like a 2-hour session. And I said, oh, do you need to go? She said, no, not really. I said, well, just stay. And we just talked and she cried and she laughed and we had the best time. And then she's like, if you ever come back to this city, do you want to have a coffee? And I'm like, I'd love to, you know. So for me, for a long time, I have been about service, but I think originally I really craved what would you call it? My peers. I really craved for them to say, Christine's amazing. She's so wonderful.
Which is the ego.
The ego, that's it. Very ego driven. And now I don't think I have any ego at all. And I don't resonate with people who I perceive to be ego driven. Like to me, some people say they're wanting to help other people, but they only really want to help people who can then help them.
Yes.
And they're not my people. I just love genuinely like talking to the little girl. Like the other day when that little girl came in and she was crying and then I talked to her for like 15 minutes and then gradually she got her courage up and then she did her exam with a smile. To me, that was a good day's work. Now, financially, that doesn't pay anything like what I do in corporate, but what it pays in my heart, you can't put a price on that. To see a little girl, you know, and she'll remember hopefully what I said. And then next time she feels frightened, it may have a real impact on her life all the way through. And just knowing that you can say something, and that's where power, that's what my little slogan is, you know, cultivate joy and harness the power it brings. We all have so much power to help someone else. There's always someone you can help. You can sweep their porch, you can carry their pram, you can smile, you can give them a kind word. It takes nothing. And if everybody went into the world each day thinking, how can I help someone? Where's someone I can help? Where's someone I can help? Imagine where we'd be.
Yeah, a different society, definitely a different society. But in saying that, you know, it's about having that focus and having that mindset of going into it. And you can only control what you do. You can't control what others do. But if you can control what you do and then someone else feeds off that energy and they start in, there is that ripple effect, right? I wanted to also ask you, throughout your life, who would you say has been your biggest teacher?
Biggest teacher. I think I've been my biggest teacher because I've been pretty emotionally, like I'm pretty balanced now at 54, but let me say it's taken a long time to get here. I've had a lot of self-doubt, a lot of anxiety. So I think I've been my biggest teacher, but I would also say my students, my little tap dancing students, seeing them overcome their challenges, they have been great teachers. Yeah. So I think, probably, my students have been wonderful teachers. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, one last question, Christine. If you could cast your mind forward and you meet your 100-year-old self, what does 100-year-old Christine say to you?
Why did you waste so much time having anxiety and depression and worry? It is the biggest waste of time. You just want to launch yourself upon the world with joy and be grateful for what you have and think, what am I good at? How can I use that to help somebody else? And just be joyful. Don't waste your time in self-doubt because no one else cares what you're doing. No one cares. Just get on with it and be happy.
I love that. I just watching that and listening to the words that you said there and the energy that you put into it, I sat there and I could just see it. We need to splash that over all the electronic screens in Times Square and everywhere, because that is such an important message. And I think it's a beautiful way to end this episode. Now, Christine, can I ask you, for those that want to connect with you on a personal level, professional level, they want to think about how you can come into their organization, they may just want to follow you and just feed off that beautiful energy that you have and that beautiful joy that you cultivate and you harness. What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah. The best way is if you're on LinkedIn, I'm there as Christine Denny, aka the Joymaker. So you can find me on LinkedIn. So if you're a corporate or organization, LinkedIn is a very easy way to just find people and do stuff. I do have a website which is just christinedenny.com, and I think it switches over to .com.au, as they do. But anyway, you can just email me at info@christinedenny.com. Or find me on, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere. But I think the easiest thing is if you're on LinkedIn, I find that the easiest way to connect. But if you're a private person, just go to the website, info@christinedenny.com.
Perfect. Awesome. And I will put all those in the show notes as well so that everyone's got those links to be able to connect with you. It's been such an awesome episode. I feel energized and I'm sure listeners do as well. I am really grateful for your time and really appreciate your thoughts and reflections and just the joy you're bringing into the world. You are an absolute phenomenal human being. Just keep doing what you're doing, and I look forward to continuing to connect with you.
Yeah, you too, Steve. I've been very much enjoying all of your posts on LinkedIn, and I think you're doing amazing things in the world as well. So there's so many people. We just need to all come together and amplify the joy and the good, because there's miles of it everywhere.
That's right. Perfect way to end. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Christine.